You want to be able to go at that elk in a natural way where you're not sneaking, like, oh, I don't want him to hear me. No, you're not deer hunting here. You want to give him exactly what he expects to hear. The cows.
All right, to wrap up this mini-series of elk hunting episodes that we've been doing, we have Paul Medell from ElkNut Outdoors. Paul was a guest way back on episode 36, and that episode is one of the most popular episodes we've had. We talked about not just calling elk, but really speaking their language. Paul and Chris Rowe from the previous episode have some similar philosophies, but there's some differences as well. But that's not what we talk about exactly in this episode. We have a far-ranging conversation with Paul. He's one of these guys that is so passionate. When you get him going about elk hunting, the knowledge and the information just starts flowing. You guys are sure to enjoy this one. It's so not only informational, but entertaining. And again, I think a great way to cap off this series and get you ready to hit the elk woods. I know that seasons are opening literally as this episode's released, and that thousands of you guys listening to this will be hunting elk in the next month. So man, it's an exciting time. Hope this episode helps you with that. Before we get into our conversation with Paul, we want to thank our friends at First Light for sponsoring this episode and helping us make the Hunt Backcountry podcast a reality. I can't wait to be spending a week in the backcountry, and First Light is an essential piece of my kit to do that successfully and comfortably and to allow me to hunt hard. So thanks to First Light for making killer gear, for supporting hunting, and for supporting what we do. All right, let's get right into this conversation with Paul the ElkNut. Paul, welcome back to the Hunt Backcountry podcast. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing good, Mark. Thank you very much for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting. We were just talking before the show started. It is getting to be crunch time. Getting really close to opening day, so I know that you're pumped. I'm pumped. I know the listeners are pumped, and it's a perfect time to get you on and to really do like a final, like preseason, get some good information, some good inspiration from you. One thing that I always love talking to you is just your passion. It just comes across so much, and so I know that just hearing from you will not only inform guys, but just get them excited to get out there and chase some elk for sure.
Well, there's no bad time to hunt elk. There really isn't. No, there really isn't. I mean, there's some times that are more exciting than others, but when you have the right mindset, and these days it seems like everybody's just trying to take an elk of any caliber. It's not like everything has to be the next world record. And so just to be able to dive into that and share information where individuals might be able to glean from it and just have a good time. I mean, just us guys, just think about it. We enjoy just having elk come in close, whether it's one we want to take or not. It's just a fact that it builds our confidence that we can do it. And so can anybody that's, listening in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the previous episode we did with you was over a year ago and was a fantastic episode. We got amazing feedback from it. But at the same time, I know that there's a bunch of folks listening who are new to the podcast within the last year and didn't hear your first episode, may or may not be familiar with you. So go ahead and give us just a couple minutes of context and history for guys who might not be familiar with the ElkNut, if you will.
Yeah, I'm an ElkNut, and I think there's a lot of us out there, no doubt about it. But, we've had the ElkNut outdoor business now. It's been 18 years, and I've been an ElkNut a lot longer than that. But basically, a lot of folks know us from our DVDs and the CDs and the playbook and the various elk calls that we have. And that's how most of them are familiar with us. And also, through the hunting sites, which I try to frequent daily, weekly. It depends how busy it is and whatnot. But I do try to touch base all the time. But I receive a lot of phone calls, about all that. And so it's good to be able to conduct a business, but yet reach out and still talk with people. because I'm no different than anybody else. I mean, I'm just a regular guy that just has a passion to hunt elk, to share knowledge that I've learned over the years and the trials and errors. And most of the people know us because of the elk language. And that's what really our niche in the industry is. There's one thing to say I'm an elk hunter, and there's another thing when an individual can learn the language and understand what they may be hearing out there without ever seeing elk, or being able to imitate and produce a sound expecting a specific sound back from the elk in a way of communication, just like you would talk to a wife, husband, or your kids. You know, you're communicating, you're relating information back and forth. And so that's what we try to do with the elk, and that's what we're kind of known for is the sounds that elk make. What is the message that's being sent? And I've done, you know, a lot of research and study over 30 years of elk behavior, the sounds that they make. What do they mean? What's the definition of them? And of course, you know, there's always an adjustment. Nobody's perfect. But over the years, it seems like we've gotten a pretty good handhold on it. And so what we've done is we've tried to share this information through the DVDs and CDs and the playbook and stuff of what various sounds mean. And so hunters themselves can kind of study this, just like if they were going to a school, they would study this and try to get those sounds into their mind and to really get it in their memory to understand what's going on out there. And that's kind of what we delve into more than anything, is trying to help people appreciate the various sounds that elk make and what are they saying, so that we know what's going on and we can form a basic sound plan on how to treat an encounter. And basically that's what we're all about. And so you can take it from there, Mark.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I guess before we dive into some of the specifics, I would just love to hear, since we talked on the podcast, there's been a whole lot of elk hunting that's happened since we last spoke on the podcast. How did 2016 go for you? What stands out in terms of any highlights, lowlights, lessons learned, or anything like that from your 2016 season?
Well, you know, everybody learns every year. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. If you talk to elk hunters that have been hunting 10 years or 50 years, I bet you every one of them would say that they learned something. Those elk teach us something every year, no matter how schooled you are or how good you think you want to be or you are. They really do. It's like a never-ending process. But at the same time, it's real enjoyable to be able to go out there and accept that challenge. And I know you guys are very familiar with that. I know Lenny, I think he was like on the last 1 or 2 days and he connected with a bull. And you know what? Look, no, seriously, look how many times we've hunted and years we put in. And to be able to go out there and persevere and not give up. Was it the last day or the second to the last day, Lenny?
It was the last day, about 2:00 in the afternoon.
I mean, that's amazing. You know why? Because you're an ElkNut. I mean, really, I mean, you just didn't give up. And, you know, we all fall into that category at one time or another. It's not a yearly thing. At least we hope it's not. Who wants to wait to the last day and chew all your fingernails off at the nubs? You know, just, man, this is tough, you know. But my hat's off to you because you got it done. And I remember seeing the photos of it. And I actually talked to, you know, in person about that hunt. And it was a great hunt. The fact that you were able to bugle that bull in. I mean, that's what stood out with me, because it seems like today most people cow call to no end. It doesn't mean it doesn't work, but I remember you telling me that the clinching result was you were using the bugle, if I remember right, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know, and that's what it's all about right there is we're learning and just trying to be able to be the best that we can out there. And this year we were real fortunate. The 5 of us that are in the ElkNut crew, which I have mentioned in the past, we killed 8 bulls this year. And so we had a really good year. It could have been more, you know, it could have been less too. But believe me, we're extremely thankful for the opportunities that we've had out there. And I think 7 of the 8 were called in. 1 wasn't. And I think the highlight of it, more than anything, was my grandson, who is 11 years old, was there when I called the bull in that my son shot, and he was standing he was touching his dad's side, and I was probably, I'm going to say 15 to 18 yards. I know that's getting really detailed, but I was about that far from them, set up, and I was actually doing the calling, and Paul was doing the shooting. But that to me, because I can remember his son's name is Trey, my grandson, and I can see his eyes, the left eye, and it was big as a silver dollar as this elk was coming in, because it took a while. You mind if I tell the story?
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, here's what happened. We go ahead and we go to a spot that Paul's killed 2 bulls in 3 years at this spot. And so we knew it was a decent spot, and it's early in the season. I believe it was September the 2nd. So it's one of those times that a lot of guys are hunting these days where in most respects the elks aren't extremely vocal or bugling much. And so you just try to make something happen, or to create something positive from quiet elk. But this particular morning, we head up to this area, and we decide we're going to go straight up the mountain, and we're covering maybe 500 foot in elevation, and which gets you maybe halfway up this mountain. So we're heading up, and Trey's with us, and we have him his little trekking pole, and because this was the first year I actually ever used him. And so we're all trucking up there kind of watching Trey, and Trey's just booking along. As a matter of fact, he's outdoing me. These kids just have endless energy. I mean, they really do. And so he's going up, and we get up to an area where it starts to bench off, and we have a spot up there that's like, okay, once you get to this area, we all have these kind of spots. It's like we can start hearing something from here on. It seems like everything below that, it's like we never hear anything. Just get moving until you get up to this area, especially in areas that we've hunted, frequently. So we get up to it, and we find this little water hole, and we're sitting there looking, and man, it is just tore up. And my son and I and Trace, we're trying to explain to him, the elk movement, what was happening there, why they're using it. You could see the trails coming in. And all of a sudden we hear a bull bugle off to our left. And I looked at my son like, September the 2nd, wow, that's a pretty healthy bugle. And then a bull bugles behind him. And I'm like, okay, hey, wait a minute. And so I listen again. I hear the bigger bull bugle, and then the second bull bugle. And it's like, okay, we have a hot cow up here. That's a defensive bull. For the listeners, anytime you have a bull that's defensive, there's a hot cow. Bulls do not get defensive unless there's a hot cow around. They could care less other than that. So that showed me even that early that this second bull was a satellite, and he was trailing, tagging along, dogging this herd, which were probably, I'm going to estimate, we were hunting real thick timber, so you can't see outside of 75 yards. And this bull bugled the herd bull probably 3, 4, and 5 times, all within just a couple of minutes, as we're just sitting there and we're listening. And they weren't moving fast, but we could tell they were moving up the mountain. And the first bugles we heard, they were about on the same elevation as us, but still at least 400 plus yards off to our left. And so we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, boy, they're heading up that hill. And Paul says, my son, I can remember him saying, let's just get up there. We'll go up there and go after him. I go, no, man. I says, I think we're going to try to call that bull over here. We're not going to kill the herd bull right there. I knew that. But we were trying to pull the other bull. And I thought, you know what? He's not having much luck. And you could really hear them going back and forth. I thought, let's just see if we can pull him over here. We'll know real quick if we can or not. So I immediately gave 3 or 4 cow calls, 2, 3 real low ones and 1 real loud one. And everything went quiet. And so I just sat there. Probably 30 seconds go by, and I hear the herd bull bugle. And now he's higher up the hill. And of course, I'm just assuming it's the herd bull because he's usually the one up front there. And the second bull never made a sound, nothing. So I wait a minute, I cow call several more times, and I look at Paul and I said, I want you to cow call again, as well. And so we both cow call just a couple of times, and we're kind of hanging in there. We're standing by this water hole, and Trey's just sitting there, and he's kind of kicking his feet around. You know how kids are. They want something to happen right now. There's none of this. We've got to wait for a few minutes. So we kind of worked this bull a little bit with sounds, nothing. But the herd bull, he moving up the mountain steadily. Never stopped. And he bugled 3 or 4 more times, and now he's at least 200 yards higher from when we originally heard him. And I looked at Paul, and I told him, I said, that other bull, he shut up, he's coming in. And no, he's not. I said, yeah, he is. He's coming in. 10 minutes go by, maybe 12 minutes. That's a long time when you're waiting and nothing's happening. And so we're sitting there, and every once in a while, I just give a few cow calls. This bull hasn't said a sound. And just letting him know we're still hanging in that area. And I would say in that 12 to 15 minute span, we had a bunch of willows in front of us, and all of a sudden we could hear the willows just crashing, breaking. I mean, violently. And I look at Paul, and he's just right there in front of me. And so I move back a little bit till I'm in that 15, 18 yards away from him, just kind of hidden, but I'm looking right at him, at Paul and Trey. And I can see Paul whispering to Trey, kind of probably letting him know, hey, that bull's right there. He's coming in. He's about 50 yards. We can't see anything. And so I turn around and cast some cow calls away from him. He doesn't make a sound. All we could hear, we could now see the willows, and they're parting, and he's walking, assuming we still don't know what he is. And all of a sudden, about 40 yards, I can see a flash of horns, and I didn't make another sound. And this bull's coming. Now he's in search mode, and he's looking. He comes into about 30, 35 yards, and he's just looking around. Nothing. So he keeps coming. The wind is perfect. We're on a bench. He walks towards the front of us, and I see him come to 25 yards, and I see Paul draw as he walks right behind a tree. So now Paul's sitting there at full draw, and I'm watching this bull, and I'm thinking, okay, I can't do anything right here. And I look, and he's a 6-point bull. And so I see him come up behind the tree, and he's looking, nothing. And I'm thinking, okay, if this bull sees something he doesn't like, and I'm ready to give him a nervous grunt to stop him if I have to, and just see if Paul can make something happen. But the bull decides everything's okay, and he decides to walk straight in front of us. He is walking around us, which you couldn't have scripted much better, instead of at us from where the last sound was made. And as soon as he gets maybe 18 yards from me, I go ahead and stop him with a call. As a matter of fact, instead of giving the nervous grunt, I gave him a cow call. And the reason I did, because most bulls I stop with a nervous grunt, and probably a couple of dozen that have been taken with a bow at minimum. But on this guy, I decided with the cow call. And why? Because that is what I had given him. Normally, if I'm working a bull with bull sounds, I will stop him with a nervous grunt if I need to. But in this case, I knew he was searching for that cow. And so as he came across, and I'm seeing Paul at full draw, he's roughly 20 yards from him, the way that bull came in. And I just gave him a real sharp blast of a cow call. He stopped because he was walking. And I didn't want Paul to have a moving shot if you don't have to. And the bull stopped. Well, Paul said he was going to stop him. What I did not know was when I stopped that bull, Paul had a branch right in front of him. That's why he never stopped him. And I probably, just Dad being excited about it, you think this is the first elk we ever saw, but you just do. And as he's coming through, and I see him, I mean, he is wide open to me. And of course, I don't even have my bow up. I'm letting Paul take care of him. And I see Trey just watching him the whole time. And all of a sudden, I see Paul after I stop the bull's looking at me because I gave him a cow call, kind of just yeah. And he just stops and he turns. He's 100% broadside. But I see Paul still holding, and he stands up. He's on one knee. He stands up, and I'm like, what are you doing? Well, that branch was in his way. And so he had to stand up to get over the branch. And when he shot, he said he saw the pine needles give a little bit of a waver, but the bull was so close that it went straight through both lungs, and the bull ran, and all of us are standing up looking, and all three of us could see the bull run off to just a few yards and just tip over, and we saw his rack go in the air and hit the turf right there. But I mean, it was just real exciting to have your grandson right there to see how the whole thing, transpires on a public land, over-the-counter elk hunt. And it's hard to describe unless you're right there with your own kid or your grandson in this case. But it's pretty darn exciting. I don't care how many elk you put on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you probably just created a hunter for life right there.
We hope so. That's passing it along there to the youth like that is something that I think guys like us, we really work hard at that to be able to make it enjoyable for them and to have them by our side. And they've seen Dad bring elk home before and Grandpa and all this, but to be right there and to see it and then to be excited about it. I mean, he's just looking around in awe, like, what do we do now? I mean, he sees it all happen, and it happens quickly, and it was very humane. I mean, this bull went, he walked over just, not very far, a few steps, and he just went down. It was just such a peaceful ending. So it was really good the way it all happened, and it left a good, impression on Trey just to see how it was all so peaceful and the way it went down. There was nothing erratic about it or disturbing. So I think all that when you stop and think about the complete picture, it was really a cool thing to have happen there. And yes, Trey was very excited. Trey carried the backstraps out on his XO pack, and that's what he was packing. Oh, so cool. That was pretty cool. Oh yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Well, not only is that a fun story to hear, Paul, but even in here in the story, I already picked up some things that were just helpful little tidbits of wisdom. Just, the little things you mentioned, like if you got a bull coming in, you got his attention, you're working him via your own bull calls, then as you mentioned, stopping him, maybe stick to a grunt like a bull. But if you bring in an elk in via cow calls, go ahead and stop him with a cow call. I mean, it makes so much sense, but just to hear that and have that reinforced is really helpful because, in that situation, if you were working this bull and you're getting him to come in as a cow, and then all of a sudden you make a bull vocalization, that's just, it's more of a spook factor there versus making a continued cow vocalization that he's already used to hearing at this point. That's helpful stuff, just that little bit right there.
And that can be, a good point if a person were to go straight to a bull sound. But just so that everybody realizes, when a nervous grunt is used, it can be used by any elk, whether it's a calf, a cow, or any bull. All elk will make that sound, and the purpose behind that sound is asking for a visual or an identification, and that's usually, and you've probably had it happen. Mark and Lenny, a bull come into a certain spot, and if he feels he's at a certain spot where he feels he should see the sounds that he heard or the movement, he'll give you that kind of just that single note. I don't want to be loud here with the microphone in my face, but he'll give you that little bit of a noise, and it's because he feels he should see you by now. And if he doesn't, he wants to make sure you're not a threat or an issue, and so he's asking for a visual or a satisfying response. But so in that situation, it would. But here's the thing that really hit a home run with me on this, and what I try to explain to people in this situation, how many people would have actually understood what was going on? You see, when that bull was bugling the herd bull, and when he shut up, I heard him bugle probably a half a dozen times to each other. And when we called and that bull stopped calling, and all I could hear now was the herd bull going up the mountain, just a bugle here and there. And then he finally got so far up that we could barely hear him. And that other bull never responded back. That told me his interest was redirected. And it was redirected where? To us. It was all of a sudden. And why was he directed to us? Because not only were we a cow, but he was a cow. He had no idea who it was. He knows those cows in that area. Believe me, he knows them by their sound. No question about it. So when he heard us, it could have been one of the cows in that other bull's group that wasn't in estrus. So does he care about her? Heck no. Couldn't give a plug nickel for her. He only cares about the cows that are coming into heat, or a cow he has no idea who it is, even that early in the game. And so by throwing that sound out there, I knew that neither one of those bulls would know who that cow was, but generally the herd bull will try to call that cow over to her. A satellite many times will do what that bull did. He could have went with the herd bull. There's no doubt about it. No question. But he decided when he stopped bugling, I knew he was coming. And I knew 90% chance he was coming. And then when he didn't bugle again, and again, as we called a few times, and he was still quiet, I kept telling my son, because he wanted to go. Paul will tell you, he says, let's just go. Let's move on. He's not coming. I said, yes, he is. He's coming. Be patient. This guy is coming. That's why he shut up. And sure enough, could I have been wrong? Oh, yeah. But I wasn't. I was very fortunate that here he come out of nowhere. You count 15 minutes in the Elkwoods of doing nothing and hearing
it's an eternity.
Nothing. You want to move. You want to say this isn't happening. There's a bull. He's still bugling and leaving, and we're doing nothing. But I just had that gut feeling. I've had it happen before where they start slipping in silent. Yeah, it's a lot nicer to have him being vocal on their way in, but he wasn't. And so understanding the situation we were in and playing it out, what if we would have left 5, 6, 7 minutes? That bull would have showed up. We'd have been going up the mountain, none the wiser. How many times have all of us elk hunted over the years, left a bull laying there, walking in, and we've already long gone? It happens all the time. And I'm as guilty as anybody. But this guy, he gave us the clues that he shut up. That was number one, that bull has redirected the direction he's going, and he's coming over to us. So that's why we just kept calling sparingly and to give him that direction exactly where we were. And we brought him toward that water hole that was just tore up with tracks everywhere. And again, he didn't know who this cow was. And to me, that is one of my biggest aces in the hole when I'm working a bull, whether it's a herd bull or a satellite. You can have a bull talking to his cows, or you can hear cows calling all around a bull. And that's all you hear is the cows. But then you come in there and you give a cow call, and immediately he gives a response because he doesn't know who you are. And he's telling you to come on up and join the group. But he's not saying anything to the other cows, calves, and others all talking around him. He ain't saying a word, nothing. But he does to you, almost immediately. So this is what's going on, is he's recognizing that there's a new lady out there. And that is always an interest to him. Why does he want her to come up there? He wants a scent checker. That's what he wants to do. He wants to see if she's coming into heat. Because when a cow comes into heat, she can't text the bull or somebody or make a phone call and say, I'm coming into heat. And she doesn't make any special sounds. So many people these days think they do, but they really don't. A cow doesn't make one sound that gives a bull any indicator that she may be willing or heading toward estrus or she's being ready to be bred. You know who makes the sounds? The bull does. That's what I go by. When the bull will let you know if a cow is coming into heat or not. That is how we tell. And I know we didn't cover this on the last podcast because there's just so much. But really, that is who tells you. Because anytime you have a bull that's defensive, there's a hot cow around. You can mark my words and take it to the bank. If you have a bull that has 8 cows, 10, 12, I don't care what, and no cows are in heat, you can hardly get that bull to bugle back to you. He hardly doesn't say anything. As a matter of fact, it's real common to see 2 or 3 bulls walk right amongst his cows. And I mean in the middle of September. And he couldn't care less because nothing can be bred. But once one cow shows signs of coming into heat, he now clears the dance floor. Those satellites or subordinate bulls are no longer welcome. He pushes them away. So this is some of the strategies that we try to use even, during this, every season. And these strategies have led up to taking of, most of these bulls that we took this year. Is if you can plant that seed that you're being defensive to a bull, whether it's a herd bull or a satellite, it doesn't matter. Anytime you show defensive resistance, you're showing them that you have a hot cow with you. It's the same thing they do. If you have a hot cow in the group and you get to a bull and you bugle at him and you're 150 yards away or 100, he is going to come back like lightning. He's going to grunt and scream and intimidate you with a challenge to stay back or else. But if he has no hot cow, you can't hardly get a peep out of him. He doesn't care. He's not defensive. And so early season, those are some of the things we work on, is we try to plant that seed of bringing that bull to us out of curiosity by being that defensive bull that shows him, the real bull, that we have a possible hot cow over there. And this is what they're all waiting for. He's waiting for his own cows to come into heat or to estrus. Both of those words are really, they're the same thing. Whether a dog or a cow or a doe is coming into heat or estrus is basically the same. So when I'm saying those sounds or those phrases, I'm meaning one and the same. But by showing defense, that is showing you that a cow is coming in. And that is a very killable bull right there. And a lot of times we find a bull with cows and we will not bother them if we do not get a defensive reaction from them or they're defensive on their own. When a bull has a hot cow, you're going to hear him talking to the cow. There is no question about it. He is lip balling and he is chuckling. He's giving short screams. He's doing everything to keep her close. If she gets out of his eyesight, he immediately may give her that roundup bugle to bring her back. Let her know he doesn't like it. It's not real demanding at that time. And if she doesn't pay attention, what does he do? He goes straight to a lip ball. This is an urgent tone. It's saying the same thing to get back over here, get back where I can see you. She's hot. She can be bred. He doesn't want another bull to come in and maybe hook her out of there. He's not even worried about the other cows. He could care less about them. It's the hot cow that he's concerned with that the other bulls are going to steer their attention to. And so, all this is so important in the elk woods, and this is what leads us to our success. We took 8 bulls this year, 7 the year before, 7 the year before. And that's 22 bulls in 3 years, all over the counter, do it yourself. And most every one of these are called in by creating a situation that will appeal to a bull or taking advantage of the situation that is really happening with the bulls out there. So you can either get creative and make them think there's breeding possibly going on, or when there is breeding going on, you take advantage of that situation in more of a challenging mode. Now you can either challenge. My favorite thing is to go in and call the cows, and Lenny knows it. I just love getting in tight, and I'll try to call the cow away. I'm not trying to call any cow, and he knows it. I'm trying to call the hot cow away. And with that lip ball scream, and sometimes I'll throw pants in if he's not moving fast enough, all this creates excitement. And he knows I'm talking to the cow. I can be talking to him in such a way that I'm telling him he doesn't have a right to keep and breed that cow. I want her instead. So it's kind of slapping his face to reach in there as another bull in close enough and try to call that hot cow. I could care less about the other cows, or I would have been there yesterday when there's no cows and I'm just constantly trying to call them. But you see, bulls don't do that. And this is where people have problems. They find a bull that has cows and they immediately think they can be aggressive with that bull right out of the chute. And if you do, you will push him away 9 times out of 10 because he's not ripe. He is not ready to die because he's not going to be real defensive unless you show him otherwise. And that's a whole nother strategy that we use on bulls who have cows or satellites, and there's no hot cow around. So then you have to change gear, and that's a process. You cannot make one sound and say, I have a hot cow over here. It doesn't work like that. You have to lead up to it, and it takes about 5 minutes, and there's a process that you go from this one to this one to this one. Bingo. Here's why I'm doing these things, because I have a possible hot cow over here. And it convinces the herd bull or the satellite to come over and want to check you out because they're all interested in a possible hot cow, especially when you come to their doorstep to do it. You're not trying to do this, hundreds of yards away. You're right there. But anyway, I could get going on and on. Yeah. But all this is really important in the elk woods, for success. It really is. There's so much more than just saying I'm going to bugle and cow call. But you have to, adjust your collar and be able to tailor it right to that specific situation. Out of these bulls we killed, we probably only talked to 10 or 11 bulls to kill those 8. So it's not like we're talking to 25 bulls to kill those. And as you know, when you're hunting a lot of these over-the-counter units, you just don't get 3 encounters a day. We don't. We hunt hard and far. And these days it seems like it's difficult for most common days to get a bull a day. Yeah, there's those days that we get into to repeated bulls, to different ones, and there's more than one. But so many times you don't. And so it's so important to us that when we do find a bull, that we tailor our calling to what's going to attract him. So you don't just force things down and hope that they, cooperate. No, you have to communicate with them and see where they're at and what they're feeling. And then you play on that, whether it's curiosity, aggression, whatever their mood is. And it's so easy to tell if there's a hot cow in the area. It's a piece of cake. If a bull bugles if there's a hot cow or not, or is he just advertising himself from his bed? He's giving lazy bugles every few minutes, 12, 15 minutes. Nothing else is answering him. 0. That's a bull advertising his position. He's not moving. He's staying there. That is a very killable bull if you know what you're doing and give him what he wants. The same as if a bull just bugles once. It's the same as a bull if he's using a location bugle. What's the difference between a bull advertising himself and a bull giving a location bugle? You see, and those are the things you, as a hunter, that are going to up your odds. If a bull's giving a location bugle, means he's in search of. He doesn't know where the elk are. So he's moving. He's looking for what? He's looking for the groups. It's for the herds. Why? He's trying to find a hot cow. He can go to a group and find a group if a bull will answer and give away his position or cows as he's moving and calling, just like you and I do. we're ridge runners. We're moving up and we're calling down into these valleys, into these draws, the basins, the parks. We're calling everywhere as we can get these vantage points, and our sound will carry. Well, bulls do the same thing. And when he gets a response, you think he just sits up there on the hill? No, he gets down there, and he'll usually circle that group, and he's smelling and smelling and smelling. He's trying to scent check that group to see if there's a hot cow in there. And if there's no hot cow, he can either choose to stick around there or he'll move on, looking for the next group, just like a big buck will do with does. He's doing the same thing. But if a bull feels there's elk in an area and he wants to just build his harem, yeah, a hot cow would be great. But he'll hold his position when he calls. He won't move. And you'll hear that bull call repetitiously from the same spot. So see, that's a bull advertising himself. He's really not in search of, where are you guys? No, he knows there's elk within earshot, and that's why he's calling from where he is. And so that's the kind of bull, when he calls like that I will usually give him the cow sounds that he's looking for. And you have to give him a sound that a real cow would give, let him know she heard him and she's coming. She does not just give a hoochie mama or just a couple of real soft cow calls. That's not what she does. She gives that very rapid whine, and it sounds a little bit like this right here. Here's what she does. It'll sound, and this is a cow accepting the bull's invite as she heads toward him, and she'll go like this. And she'll do that. And she'll do it a dozen times, maybe pause as she's making her way to him, and she'll do it again. And what's really cool is when you have 6, 7, 8 cows doing that to you, and you're the bugler, and here they come. They're coming right at you. And so I learned that years ago. Use that sound when you hear the bull. So when he bugles, you give that to him. That lets him know, I heard you, I'm coming. And usually you can build up the excitement of that bull, even if there's nothing hot over there, any cows. He's calling you over and bringing you to that group, and he'll let you walk right there to him. I mean, right on top of him. As long as he doesn't smell you or see you, it's just a really great sound to use with that bull that's advertising himself, calling cows to build a harem or to start a harem. And so you're giving him what he wants right there. Now, if I would have stayed back and bugled that bull, tried to cow call him and then bugle him, the odds are really, it's in the air. It's a real crapshoot. Can I get him fired up, trying to make him think, okay, I cow called, then I bugled behind him. And anytime I show defensive action real quick like that, I have a possible hot cow. I don't think he would buy it that quick. You would have to be much more leading up to it. And I've tried it that way too. You're going to push as many bulls away as you'll call in, but you won't push them away when you use that cow sound that he expects to hear at that time, and then go right at him.
If you have a stationary bull that you just talked about, and you're gonna use this strategy, this cow coming in and making those vocalizations, at what range are you trying to get to before you're making those vocalizations? Because I know obviously we talk a lot, and you've already even mentioned about trying to close the distance and then making your calls for that to be effective. In this scenario where you're moving in, and that's the play, the bull even thinks you're moving in, what type of distances, or range are you going to look at before you're making those calls?
And that's a really good question, because I kind of slid right past that, didn't I? And you're right. I'm sure a lot of folks would wonder that same thing. But generally speaking, let's just say we're talking about a lone bull, okay? So a lone bull doing that, advertising himself, I try to usually get anywhere from 150, 175 yards away. You do not have to be on top of this bull. And once I get to that distance, I usually will let him know I can hear him, and I'm going to go ahead and come over and accept the invite, basically is what you're saying. Maybe that's kind of a human way of saying it, but it's really, in reality, that's what's taking place. So do you have to be 80 yards? No. You could be 200 yards. I think the furthest I've ever done it, I would probably say I was under 200 yards, and maybe not further because maybe he couldn't hear me. Who knows? Because a lot of times when you hear him like that, you will make a cow sound, and once you hear him, you feel he can hear you. But generally, it's somewhere in there. If you can get that 150, 175 yard, that is perfectly natural. What's unnatural is if you try to just sneak in on him with calling. So if you decide, man, this terrain is really open and this bull is calling every few minutes, maybe I don't have to say anything. I can just slip in silently, move in there and take him. Do it. But so much of the country we hunt, And maybe you do, I don't know, but I know Lenny hunts a lot of the stuff we do. You have a lot of downfall, a lot of crap on the ground. And to make a silent approach enough to kill that bull, it's almost impossible in some of these downfall burned areas and whatnot where these elk are living. And so you almost have to have that invite. You have to call your way to the elk. And there's no better way to call your way to an elk than to wait for him to ask you to come. Once he asks you, and he will, believe me, he will ask you to come when you're a cow. If you're a cow and a bull, he may try to call the cow away from the bull, but I would not throw a bull into that equation because you're throwing a wrench into things when you don't need to. So if you can't slip in silent, use that calling from that distance. I also will play something similar to that. If it's really ugly and I have two bulls calling like that, if you have two bulls bugling, because this is along the same line, Mark, and they're probably, let's say they're 400 yards away, and you will get that sometimes, and they're not approaching each other at all. It's because they both have their own cows, and both of these bulls are still trying to build their harem, whether they call something from that group or this guy calls something from his group, or they pick up any stragglers in between. But when you get bulls bugling like that from the same spot and they're not moving, a lot of times I will get between those two bulls. And I will try to call one of those bulls away from him. And you can really do that when you go straight to the threat. That has been one of our number one things by going straight to the threat, because I cannot advance and kill him silently, is going right in there with that super whiny cow sound and just screaming bugles. I don't even wait for the bull to bugle. I just hammer the whole thing right in between them. And you cannot believe how many times those bulls, at least one of them, is coming straight at you. And you can definitely pull those bulls in your way, or at least one of them. I know of so many occasions where guys have, emailed me or called me saying they could not believe how that worked. You wouldn't think it would be that effective, but it really is. When you can get between two of them like that, it gets their goat, man. It really, really does. But when I'm by myself, a lot of times it's like, I just love going at the bull. I really do. And so if I can call my way and have him invite me, I will do that.
Yeah. And then so if you say you're 150 yards out, you're doing that, you make those calls, you're working your way in, what's your strategy as the distance closes? Are you literally trying to get in on him and make a quote unquote stalk, if you will? Or are you going to hold up at a certain point and try and get him to close the distance? What's your preferred method of actually getting into that shooting range and getting that shot opportunity?
No, I take it right to him. The whole time. I hardly ever, and when you're going to do this, it's kind of a well thought out thing in your mind that the wind is good and I have the cover. I know I can do this. And so I don't foresee any monster meadows in between us because, when you're only 150 yards or so, you can pretty much get a lay of the land real quick. Unless there's just some big knoll or mountain over you or hill that you don't see. But in most cases, you can have the cover. But I am extremely noisy when I go in. I make sure that I'm hitting things, breaking things, snapping them, dragging my foot, hitting the heel on a stone like it's a hoof. I literally do those things on purpose, because when you call cows in via the bugle, they are not tiptoeing in. Believe me, they are crashing, banging, hitting everything. They're in a natural environment, and you've sold your product well, and they're coming in thinking you're really a bull over there. So when you're being that cow, you want to be able to do the same thing. You want to be able to go at that elk in a natural way where you're not sneaking, like, oh, I don't want him to hear me. No, you're not deer hunting here. You want to give him exactly what he expects to hear. The cow is making sounds, and a lot of times I don't even go straight at the bull. I may go a little right, a little left, linger a little bit like a real elk. They don't just come racing in and you save me. It's not like that. This is the elk world. They will eventually make it over there, so there's no real time factor. But make it real, meander, get over here, break some things. Still let him know where you're at. So what he's hearing, he knows it's you. But the minute I get to 40 yards, that's where I stop all my calling. I do not call again. And being very careful as that I am these days, that's when I knock my arrow. I do not knock an arrow anywhere in that other distance as I'm approaching the bull, just for safety purposes, and at 40 yards roughly, that is where I knock, whether I'm shooting a longbow or a compound, whatever I'm shooting. I knock it right there and I don't call anymore. That's my last call. So now I'm trying to be a little more quiet, but not crazy quiet. Because if I pop something, all he thinks is the cow coming. And I've mentioned this, before to you guys. When you're doing that cow call like that, you're going to notice that in most situations, you're going to find that bull is going to start raking. He's going to start raking as he tries to draw and encourage this cow to keep coming. And he's trying to show off and display for her. And that's why he does that raking. It's not an intimidation thing, but more of a showy display. He's bringing in a new recruit and he has no idea who she is, and he wants her to accept him. And that's what they do. They'll show off to her. And so that's what's going on. So expect that. And when you do hear it, if you need to maneuver or move a little bit to get that shot, and this has helped me, believe me, when I can hear him raking and I know I got to move just a little bit more to my right or left or expose myself, I'm ready, because when I step out, I already know I'm in range. So it may have to be, what if he's looking? Most of the time he's not. He's preoccupied, but I've also had where they were looking and you got to be ready. And most of the time they don't jump and run. They are so taken that all they can think in their mind is, this is a cow. And so when you show up and you have immediate reaction and action, you're drawn and anchored and letting it go, he hardly even moves. Nothing. He is so taken, like he's looking through you, like, where is this cow? I mean, it doesn't register like a whitetail where they just blow up. They don't do that. And so you have that time factor right there. There's a little bit of a leeway. So don't push yourself thinking, I have 1 second when I step out, because you really don't. You have a little more time, and I did this at 80 yards. My son was filming it. We had a bull come in 80 yards away, and I thought he was going to come closer, and he went around the tree, and as soon as he did, it was all open between me and this tree. There was nothing there. And as soon as he got on the other side of it, I'm looking at my son. This is over the counter hunt. And I told him, I said, I'm going to cow call and run right at him. He's about 15, 20 feet from me. And he's looking at me like, what? And I ran right at that tree. And I am cow calling away, just, and I'm running and I'm hoping he's staying there, because I can't see past this. And what it was a fir tree. Those fir trees have the branches grow to the ground, if remember right. They don't grow high up and then start. They go real low. So I ran at that tree. I got to the tree. I knocked an arrow and I drew, and I'm stepping out just hoping he's still there. And that bull is standing there. He never moved an inch. I stepped right up from the branches and I put an arrow right through his lungs, and that bull never went 10 feet. And he made a couple of drunken little moves and he tipped over right there. And so, that's just another bull that I took doing that. But I'm just showing you that a lot of times they are so taken. They're flabbergasted. Like they're shaking their head, like not literally, but like what they're seeing isn't there. They're expecting a real elk. And when they don't see it, you have that 3 to 4 precious seconds before they try to do anything and figure you out that your arrow is already gone. So I'm just saying, those are really good strategies. And that bull that we call, he never made a sound, never one peep. That bull, he just ended up coming right on around just from the calling, and he got over to where that tree was. And so, a lot of times, even in early seasons, you're going to find that these elk don't talk a lot. It doesn't mean they're not coming or they're not showing interest. So sometimes, exhibiting that patience is extremely important. And I think that's one of our biggest drawbacks from years past, is not having the patience after calling to stay there long enough. And I don't mean running and gunning calling. That's a totally different thing. Bugling and moving as you're trying to find, which is our favorite way. But if you're going to do any kind of I'm going to make a few cow sounds and a bull sound, or cow sounds only, you better plan on staying there. Because so many times a bull will not answer those sounds, but he could come your way, or any elk could. Cow spikes. A lot of people are happy with a cow and whatnot, but when you're going to use some kind of a calling thing like that, be prepared to stay there at least 15, 20 minutes before you move on. That's real important.
You think that's especially the case with when you're making cow vocalizations, right?
Exactly.
I think there is a higher probability, and you would know much better than me, of if you have a bull bugling and you were bugling back, and that bull goes silent. I think there is a higher case that bull potentially has taken off versus is coming in quiet. Over if you're making cow vocalizations and the bull goes quiet, there's a higher chance that it's coming in. You know, I think in general, if a bull goes quiet to cow elk sounds, there's a decent chance it's coming in. If a bull goes quiet to bull vocalizations that you made, it could be coming in, but there's also a decent chance it could just move away, right?
But the simple thing is to understand what he said when he bugled. That's what you have to do. If you just categorize every bugle as a bugle, then I can understand where you're coming from. But you have to identify the bugle you're hearing. So let's say that I'm walking through the woods, perfect scenario from your question there, and I bugle, and let's say a bull answers 200 to 400 yards away, and he gives a lip ball bugle. Okay, it's a bugle, all right, but he just gave a lip ball. Is that bull going to come toward me? Is there any chance he's coming toward me? Like zero. It's like it would be like trying to draw the best tag there is in Wyoming with 1 point. You know, your odds are just non-existent.
Because at that point he was probably talking to a cow, getting her to follow. Well, what he's doing, he's gathering them for possible escape because of an intruder. So in other words, when this bull gave a lip ball bugle, he now is 9 times out of 10, he's pulling his cows together and they're heading out of there. He's not going to hang around. He's not going to threaten you with challenge bugles. Once he gives the lip ball, see, the lip ball has a double meaning. It really does. Bulls do it all the time. The lip ball is trying to gather his harem together and at the same time warning you to stay back. It's the same thing when a bull comes into a subordinate, or a satellite bull comes up to a herd bull that has a hot cow, and he's trying to call the cow away with a lip ball. His urgency of calling the cow away is there at 75 yards, but he's also telling that herd bull to stay back. So see, it's not just calling the cow. It's that slap in the face. I don't care if you're right there, herd bull, or not. I'm calling this cow right out from under you. But he's really not that brave, because he would walk right up to the herd bull's face if he was. You know, when two guys challenge each other, they're in each other's face. But where's the challenge when two guys are yelling at each other 80 yards away? You know, see, it's more of a warning or an intimidation, because they really don't want to get up to each other, or one of them doesn't. And so that's the same thing what a bull is doing when he stays back and he's calling cowardly to pull that cow away, representing dominance and strength, trying to persuade her to check him out as a breeder. That's what he's doing. Because if you remember from the last conversation that we had, when a cow comes into heat, the reason all this is so important, when a cow comes into heat, she will be bred by roughly 3 to 5 different bulls in her 12 to 15 hours. So even if she doesn't choose that bull then, once this herd bull does everything he can and breeds her, mounts her half a dozen times, you can imagine he's totally spent. Just think of any guy trying to do that. My God, you wouldn't be able to do nothing. You'd be lucky if you could do that. I don't care what age you are. But I mean, just think of that. But this cow, this is the real elk world. This is the real animal kingdom. When these cows come into heat, they need to be bred close to 10, 12 times to ensure they're going to conceive. And so when this herd bull is done and spent with this one cow, and imagine if 2 or 3 or 4 come in and he's got a big group, these other bulls on the outside are now chosen by the cow who is going to also breed her. And you can look up at any of the RMEF information or any of the stats that are out there, and you're going to see anywhere from 3 to 5, even at times 6 bulls will breed one cow in this stretch of time. So these bulls, that's why you see these bulls hanging around these herds when a hot cow comes in, and they're all bugling. You got 3 or 4 bulls bugling this herd bull group because they're interested in that one cow, to choose one of them or 2 of them as a possible breeder when the herd bull is done. So she comes now and seeks out the bull. The bulls do not come into that harem and pull her and start breeding her. No, she leaves that and comes to them. And that's why these bulls are sitting back there advertising themselves. They are screaming and yelling and saying, choose me, and they're all doing it through sound, representing dominance and strength. This is where hunters like us,
where guys get the wrong attitude or the wrong thinking that when they get in a situation like that and they're bugling too small, they go, oh, if I bugle too big, I'm going to run the herd bull off. That is a huge mistake. You come in there, and that is the time to put the pedal to the metal. That's when you use your lip balls, your biggest screams and chuckling, you're panting, you can even glunk, you do anything to represent that power and strength to have that cow come and consider you. This is what is going to get the herd bull to come over and kick your butt, basically, to push you out of there. That is why you see these bulls, they do not at any time sit on the back edge outside the bull's comfort zone and try to be puny because they're worried about pushing Joe the herd bull out. Are you kidding me? No way. And neither should hunters. And I'll tell you, this is what leads to our success. I mean, we drill it in each other in the ElkNut crew. Man, you have to be as big as you can at times, powerful. You're going to, and power isn't just in volume. It's in the sound you're choosing to use. If you're going to use a challenge, if you're going to use a lip ball, if you're going to do pants, all those things come into play when you're really unleashing everything you have. I mean, I've called so hard before that I literally would see stars. And I'm not kidding you. I'm hitting that bugle with everything I have, trying to administer the strongest, most powerful sounds on some of these good bulls. And it works. I mean, you have to give them everything. Otherwise, they chalk you up to a dink who really isn't going to have a chance to breed that cow anyway. And they know it. Those cows can take care of themselves. And so to go in there thinking you're going to pull out a respectable bull away from the group as you represent a 3x4 bull, how many times will you ever do that successfully? Seriously, you don't. It's just, we've all fallen into that trap many years ago and realized that you have to unleash power to get his full attention, and you have to be close. Close, sometimes it's 100 yards. I pull bulls 175 yards away, the herd bull away, by being relentless in my calling because I couldn't get any closer because of openings. Other times, I pulled him away at 50 yards because it was so thick I needed him to still, cover that distance in order to kill him. But our favorite is probably if we can get anywhere in that 70 to 80, that's our absolute favorite because it gives you time to react because when he comes fast. And like you said, who are you guys and what have you taken? We've killed between 75 and 80 herd bulls in the last 26 years on these are over-the-counter public land bulls. And those are the things that we fall on. Yeah, some of them are cow called where we move in. Sometimes you get in and you can even cow call the bull. I've been in bulls 30 yards away and couldn't kill him and bugle and he wouldn't even make a peep. Nothing. Cow call and he'd go ballistic and here he comes. So you never know. How hot a bull may be and what trips him. But for most situations, a hot cow in the group, the bugle will kill that bull almost every time. So, but don't have it so set in stone that you won't throw a cow call in because there are times I lead out with the cow call and bugle right over the top of him, scream, maybe cut him off 2 or 3 times, whatever it takes. But, each situation can have a slight tweaking. But to say I'm going to use that method on every bull that has cows or even a satellite, no, not even close. Otherwise, I would probably call in 1 or 2 out of 10 or 12. And I would not be happy with that. And you guys probably wouldn't either. You're trying to make things happen with each individual bull. But anyway, you kind of get the idea there.
So Paul, when you say herd bull, I mean sometimes, especially over the counter tags, herd bull might be a 5-point, maybe it's not even fully mature. Are you using that same technique as sound? Excuse me, that big? I'm sorry.
Stop the drinking, Lenny.
Yeah, I actually need a drink.
Start it. No, I understand exactly what you're saying there, Lenny. Yeah. And sometimes I do tailor my sounds a little bit because I'm still not that big anyway. Even when I'm unleashing everything I have, you might think, unless you're standing within 20 feet of me, yeah, that sounds pretty big. But the minute you start putting yardage behind it, 30, 40, 50, guys aren't half as big as they think they are in their sound. They really aren't. And so a lot of times, yes, I'm still producing a pretty decent sound, even for a 5-point. And I'm glad you brought that up because I have maybe 4 or 5 herd bulls that are 5 points that I've killed. And some of them had 8, 9 cows. Hardly any of them had 1 or 2. All of them had probably 6 or more. And it's because of that very thing. It's some of these areas get hammered, and a 5 point is the herd bull. There just aren't enough sixes to go around, because in a lot of the dark timber country, you're going to find that most of your herd bulls, I don't care what they are, most of them have anywhere from 3 to 10 cows. You just hardly ever see 25 and 30 and 40 like in some of those sagebrush areas where you're on some of those hunts where it isn't uncommon to see 20 to 40 cows with one bull. But you just don't see that in a lot of the over-the-counter hunts and the public land hunts. It really is smaller, and I feel those bulls are actually easier to work. A lot less eyes, less cows. And when you get a bull that has 30 cows, can he really memorize and tell every cow by their sound? That's tough, because they're coming and going all the time. They're not always with him, and they're adding to it. So he's a much harder bull to work. He really is. And so really, in reality, you got to use the bugles on that bull. You have to resort to the lip balls. And that's what, when we hunted Wyoming last year, I called in probably a dozen 6 points and a lot more other smaller bulls. And we weren't calling hardly any of them in with the cow calling. It was the bugle that was doing it. Some of it was the combination of them both, but most of it was very coarse, abrasive bugling that would get that bull's attention and make him break away. But unfortunately, it was just nothing big enough. I mean, they were nice bulls, don't get me wrong, but they weren't what we were looking for when we went over there. But the point is that kind of abrasive calling, and it isn't so much the size as it is the intensity, and you're not backing up. To me, that is where I'm producing most of the positive results. And so I stay with it, and all of us do in the crew, because of the fact that we're killing elk every year with this. To say we never bump one, no, I would never say that. But the odds are very low that we bump them as opposed to bringing them in. Because again, anytime you get defensive like that, he either has a hot cow or you're showing him you have one. So you have his interest. Either way, you have his interest. If you've done it right on your end, in other words, let's say, I'm going to give you an example here. I'm hunting September the 1st. I see a bull. Maybe there's a couple satellites hanging around, and this bull has 8 cows, and they're not making a sound. I need to tell that bull that I have a hot cow. How am I going to do it? How have we done this in the past and killed one of those bulls? The biggest problem is when you get 3 or 4 bulls in an area, you never know which one's going to show first. But when you can get a herd bull with cows and he's the only one there in that area because nothing's pestering him, because there are no hot cows, he's a really good candidate to kill him. And you have to convince him you have a hot cow. You can run out there and cow call all day long, and he just isn't going to come running to you in most cases. Even though you're 100 yards away, 125, he may just call you to the group. That's about it. And you can go up there and bugle that bull. He has no hot cow, and he's going to react almost the same way. Maybe sit there chewing his cud. He could care less. He's not doing anything. So how do you get that bull to react? Here's what we do. Here's one of our techniques. It takes a few minutes to do it, but what I try to do is get a good setup. So if I can get this bull to come, he has to come into bow range before I can kill him. I cannot let that bull stop at 60, 70, or 80 and look and see where the sounds are coming from and identify the spot and see nothing, and he leaves. So now I have a good setup. What I like to do, it doesn't have to be done exactly like this, but this is the recipe, so to speak. It can be mixed up a little bit, when you're cooking something or making pancakes. You don't have to put everything in a specific order. One thing can go before the order, and when you mix it all up, who knows the difference. So that's the same thing with calling elk sometimes. But what I like to do in planting that seed is to get into that 100, 125 yard range, and usually in a bedding area, because I like the bedding area because they're at a destination spot. He has no intention of going anywhere. So I don't try to do this when they're in transition from one spot to another. I want to get them at their destination, whether it's the feeding or bedding. Bedding always seems the best for us because they spend hours and hours in that bedding area from about 9:30, 10 in the morning and on. So if I can catch them there, I will now set up. And I usually will do my little scenario. I do it every time because I like it. And it's always different bulls, so they don't know I'm repeating it. But I give them those 3 cow sounds, kind of a that's about it. And I plant the seed. And that bull's laying down. And what does he do? I don't even know because I never look at him. I don't see him, but in my mind's eye, I like to think I know what he's doing. And seriously, that's what I do. I kind of envision. I turned his head and he looked over there. I think that's what he's doing. And if he has cows over there, which most times they do, they probably did the same thing. And they just look. So what? There's a cow over there. I usually wait a minute. I do it again. So now I wait. Maybe a couple minutes go by. Sometimes I've been lucky and have a bull come over to check me out, but not every time. It's you just never know. So you're set up, you have this whole plan. I will do it again. Once in a great while, I'll have a bull bugle. If it's not him, if it's a satellite, I don't do anything. I let it go. But if it's a herd bull, if it's the one I've got my mark on, and when he bugles, I am ready to scream right over him. Now I've presented a bull, but I will tell you that 90% of the time, even more, he still doesn't say anything. So I have to keep working him. Remember, we're talking early season, no cows in, nothing's going on. I have to build it up a little bit more. So I've only been there a couple minutes. I made those cow sounds, planted the seed. So now I wait 2 or 3 minutes. I don't say anything. I just sit there and listen. So now my next thing is to start raking a tree. I let a couple minutes go by, right where the same cow was calling. I now start raking, stomping just real lightly and raking and raking. Now this bull, who I'm interested in, not only heard the cow, now all of a sudden there's a bull over there displaying for this cow. Where did he come from and who is he? I have no idea who he is. He can't tell by my sound, by my raking. But now, see, I'm planting this seed. I'm setting the table of what's going on. So now I go ahead and I keep raking, and I'm raking. I'm displaying for this cow. Why does a bull do this? There was only one real reason they do it, because they're either attracting a new cow or there's a cow coming into heat. So now I'm going to plant that seed with him. I'm going to take it a little bit further, and usually I will go ahead and just give a little. I'll just do that right there with the cow, and I'll go ahead and give the cow sound again and keep raking. And I'm hoping to get a bugle from him. If he doesn't, I keep the raking up, and now I start panting through the tube, and I kind of give him that. I go just like something like that, and I keep raking, and I'll throw maybe a couple of really low but whiny volume cow sounds out, but real low, but lengthen them out. And I just start rustling things over there. I'm still raking, and if he will answer me, and usually he will, as you continue to pick up the pace, all of a sudden he'll give you a little, try to call the cow away, or just give you a short scream over there. And when he does, that is when I come over the top of him. The minute I've shown defensive action, I am showing him that I have a cow coming into heat. That's why I'm raking. That's why I have panted. This is why I am here displaying for this cow. No other reason. The other cows mean nothing to him, but this cow right here is coming in. And so I'm planting the seed the same as if he had a hot cow over there. He would be administering those same exact sounds for her. No different. And so by showing a defensive action when he calls or tries to call that cow over, that is when I try to kill that, because he's coming. And usually he'll just come straight over to you from right there. Sometimes just the raking provokes him. Believe it or not, all you do is you start raking and you're breaking and you're stomping and here he comes. So you never know what part of the recipe you have to go through in order to attract him. Now, if that bull doesn't come, I'm not done yet with him. If he doesn't come, and I went through my little scenario and I'm kind of really mixing it up, I'm going off and on now for 10 minutes. Just really trying to drum up the business. If he doesn't come, I will now kind of go silent a little bit, and then I will walk away 40, 50 yards, leaving. Give him the cow sounds, a good powerful bugle as I'm leaving, and then when I give those sounds, I now come right back to that same spot, and I don't make a sound. Nothing. You will be surprised how many times when those elk finally get up, if the wind will hold out. If it doesn't, you got to get out of there. But if the wind will hold up, here he comes over to smell that area. He wants to scent check that area is what he wants to do. He wants to smell who that bull was or smell who that cow was. And is she coming into heat? And most of the time he comes over. But once in a blue moon, you will get a bull that's just stubborn and he won't come. And so that is his time when he'll finally come over there. And that is where you're sitting. You're sitting right there. You haven't moved an inch because you know he's there. And if he doesn't, you haven't heard a thing. He's still over there. He never went anywhere. But you will be surprised how good that works in planting the seed, letting him know that there was a hot cow and another bull came over and found her or heard her, and he came, picked her up, either took her or he's still there with her when he comes flying in over there. Those are just little things. Do you do it all the time? No, but that's just one of the scenarios that has worked very, very well for us on herd bulls and satellites as well. I've had satellites come right in, and I didn't want them. I didn't want them to show up first. And that's the problem you'll have if you're looking for that, herd bull only and you don't want the other bulls. You have that risk of them coming in there. But to me, on over the counter, that's a good risk. I'm going to kill that 5-point every time. There's no way I'm passing him up. And probably you guys won't either, but most people won't on an over-the-counter hunt.
Yeah, but most of us don't have a problem with calling in too many bulls. We're like, hey, get away, get away. Yeah.
Well, see, that's the system that we're only using on something like that, where you're trying to create something when there's really nothing going on.
Right.
And you have the elk right there. They're there. And so you guys got to try it. If you haven't, maybe you already have, but it's a system that absolutely can kick butt when everything is pretty quiet out there, but yet you have some elk spotted, keyed in on, and you can get into that distance. And then another thing that can happen, if the bull doesn't come in quick enough, you can pull one of those cows over. They do. They just get so curious that sometimes those cows will show up first. So it is a coin flip, but it's elk hunting. So if you're worried about that, and you don't have to do that technique at all. But to me, if she does, and I'm not going to shoot her, and she blows the whole thing out, so what? I'll go find other elk. It's just the fact that I'm trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Paul, to wrap up, there's been so much good information in this. We really appreciate it. You have mentioned so many calls, so many different types of calls, so many different scenarios that I'm sure a good portion of our listeners might be familiar with, but I'm sure there's guys out there who are hearing these things like, what's the lip ball versus this? And they want to know more about that and more about these specifics. And you certainly have some resources for that. One of the newest being an app, a smartphone app. So tell us about the app. Tell us about what it is, how we can get it, and more specifically, what is included, what's the benefit to this app in terms of understanding these vocalizations.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. That we were going to talk about the app. Oh, brother. Yeah, you just get so wrapped up and going. But yeah, we have the app out. It's called the ElkNut app. And at present, there are 10 sounds on it and explanations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that too. And we have 5 more coming out. I believe in 3 or 4 days, there'll be a total of 15 on there. And we're trying to add to it, every week, maybe 10 days. It depends, because all this has to be downloaded on a phone, and it can, require a lot of room on your phone. And so we didn't want to just bombard it all at once. But what it really is, it's really unique. This app, the very first part of it will go into, I believe, 3 or 4 minutes of using how to use a mouth reed, the exact location, your tongue location on the latex, everything that has to do with proper placement, how to select the right mouth reed for your size of pellet. So we cover that, and then we go into another segment right under it of mouth reed use. That is the ones where we're showing you basically, here's your tongue location, reed location for a lip ball, for a challenge, for an advertising bugle, for a variety of cow sounds, excited, cow, calf, separation, nervous grunts. And so every one of those sounds has a short video clip on how to make that sound. In addition to the mouth read section, we'll just cover them all real quick in a 4 or 5 minute video, and it's all part of the app. And so when you come in, the very first sounds that we already have on there are like the location bugle, the challenge bugle, the advertising, the roundup bugle. We have grunts, chuckling, and a bunch more cow sounds as well. Well, each one of those has a short video clip of how to make that sound with a reed. And so if you just go straight to, I want to know how to do a nervous grunt, it will show you exactly how to do it. Tongue placement, reed placement, same with the challenge bugle, advertising, location bugle. And so each one has its spot there that you can watch on a video. And then you can click on the sound, and you will hear, it will say ElkNut given this sound on every elk sound, bull or cow. And then here's the real elk right under it. You click that little link, and it will give you the sound that a real cow or a bull will make, depending on your choice. Or you can click the little button that says loop. And so if you click, I want to hear a challenge bugle repeatedly, you hit loop, and that will play the challenge bugle over and over and over until you stop it on the stop button or any one of those calls. So if you're trying to get it in, built in your memory of what that sound sounds like, so if you hear it in the woods, you're now accustomed to hearing it. So each one of these sounds also has a detailed explanation that you would click on. What do you do when what's being said, or the message being sent if an elk is using this specific sound? What do I do if I hear it? When do I use it? What are my options of how to use it in a method or technique? And so every one of those sounds has a breakdown explanation when you would use that sound and what the message is being sent by the elk. So in turn, that's going to show the hunter how to use that sound in the woods. And so it's basically in his level of communication and understanding the language. Because a lot of our elk hunts out there and others, we don't see the elk. We just hear them. And so you can actually take that app in the woods and hear a bugle and go right through the variety of elk bugles. Boom. Nope, not that one. Boom. Nope, not that one. Boom. No. Oh, that's the one right there. So then you can read the description of what he just said, what this bull's wanting, or is he intimidating or challenging some? And then it shows you what to do next, how to handle that situation. And so this thing is really going to be pretty awesome when it's completely filled up and done. But that's how every sound is being handled on there. And it's going to have everything from glunking to, like I say, the chuckles and the grunts, the roundup bugle, the lip ball, all these variety of sounds that bulls will make, and the cow calf, the excited, their separated or lost sound, the whine that we talked about today of a cow going to the bull. And we also talk about the contact buzz, how a cow will call elk her way, even a herd bull her way, or any other elk. So see, she's now turning the tables. Instead of looking for him, she's now telling him to come over. They use a specific sound for that. And we have pleading cow calls, creative cow calling. I mean, all this is going to be on this app with a detailed description of when the elk use it and when we should use it. And then we're going to go into why bulls rake, little video clips showing bulls raking, what their message is being sent. Because bulls rake for a lot of reasons, whether they're displaying for a cow, or they're at a wallow, whether they're trying to intimidate or challenge another bull, whether they're inviting another bull to come over where they're at. You see, they have different reasons why they'll rake with a different intensity. So knowing those situations, when they would do it, when you would do it, is the difference between eating a tag or not. Because so many people feel that raking is a challenge almost in every situation. And it's not. It's rarely that. So we're going to talk about the advertising sequence, the breeding sequence with video clips of us set up in the woods doing this, how to hunt elk during the full moon, decoy use, hunting around wallows, hunting water, how to set up, places not to set up, tag teaming elk, blind cold calling setups, tactics designed specially for herd bulls. All this is going to be on the app. Satellite tactics, how to hunt a triangle or a rectangle if you have 3 or 4 hunters, how they should set up, how you call, how when an elk is coming in, that guy stops calling. It alerts the other 2 or 3 something's coming because caller number 2 quit calling. And so everybody keeps their little portion up. You keep calling. So a lot of times there isn't just a lone hunter. We're going to have lone hunter tactics on it as well. Cow and spike tactics. How to call elk at night, what you look for, the sounds you use, where to call, when to call, the different times. And so, we're going to show them all on this app. Beginner hunting strategies. We're going to have what's in our pack. We love the XO pack. We're going to have the XO guys there on that app demonstrating the use of a 3500, a 5500, how to pack it. And so all this is going to be good. Early season big bull techniques, how to navigate the elk woods. All this is going to be on this app. It takes time. It's going to be months. But for $4.99, the information that's going to be on this thing, it's just, where do you find anything else like that? It's going to be an incredible app. It really is. As it continues to build, I think that people can take this in the woods. They're going to be able to use it in hunting camp, because once you download this, you do not need phone service to access it. Once it's on your phone, it's on your phone. All you need is battery power, no matter where you're at. So you're going to be able to go over it at hunting camp or with guys around the campfire and letting them hear the various sounds and see if they can identify them and what they would do in that situation. And so, it's a really good learning tool, whether you're using it at home or listening to it at the airport or, during a hunting situation. And that's what this whole thing is being designed for. Yeah. I think it's going to be pretty darn powerful. It really is.
Well, everything you mentioned, I honestly didn't even know that much was coming into down the road, but just from what's already in there and the use that I've gotten out of it, shoot, the $5 is worth it just to have access to these vocalizations as well as an understanding of these vocalizations. Again, as you mentioned, not only does it have you guys doing the demo, it has the real elk sounds that have been captured in the field. So, one thing I always, struggle with or want to ensure that I'm doing is if I'm practicing calling, it might sound good to me, but I need to hear elk or I need to hear a much better caller also do these sounds so that I can mimic it, so that I can really hear the differences. And so just even the few bucks of the app has been worth it for that already. So,
yeah, I would totally agree. I've got to play with it a little bit, and I definitely love the simplicity of it, and it's super easy to get around. And yeah,
absolutely. So, Paul, I think the app's going to be big, but I know that you have other resources. I'm sure the guys are going to have other questions from this episode. So, just to wrap up, where would you like to send guys to either learn more about, you, what you have to offer? You mentioned CDs, DVDs, you got the playbook, all kinds of stuff to offer besides the app, as well as maybe ways to get in contact with you in the future, anything like that. Where should we send guys?
Yeah, if anybody wants to contact me personally, I have no problem with that. I talk to just hundreds of people, and I don't mind adding more people to it. But you can contact me personally through ElkNut at ElkNut.com, and I encourage you to do that. There's no problem with that at all. But if you're looking for some really solid information, without costing you a ton of money, definitely consider the app. That thing is just hands down going to be awesome. But if you're looking for a little more information on specific sounds and subjects, because you can only do so much on an app, you're given the meat and potatoes of it. But if you'd like to even know a little bit more of a complete thing, definitely consider the DVDs and the playbook. And I believe for the information that was shared here this evening, probably the best tool out there on it would be the very first package. It's called 00 that can be found at elknut.com. And it will come with the Volume 4 Worst in Wolves DVD, the ElkNut 5 DVD, and the playbook. That threesome right there will really round you out. It will give you so much information, so you don't have to, be overwhelmed by all the other 10 DVDs and everything else out there. They all have their place, but that little threesome for individuals who may be starting out or even been elk hunting for many, many years and just want to up their calling game, because there are certain situations that just require it. You just can't sneak into vocal elk all the time because of surrounding conditions and terrain. So you have to either make things happen or have them invite you to them or whatever the case may be. But that threesome right there will really help out a lot of hunters. So if guys don't know where to turn and they're unsure of what to consider when they go to the website, the elknut.com website, that very first one, it says something about works well in wolf country. What that pertains to, it means it'll work anywhere there's elk, even wolf country. So I would have guys, pinpoint them right to that spot right there, and that will help them. And of course, we have the Chuckler EL bugles, which we all use, and we absolutely love it. And we have new versions of that out there right now. So if guys are looking for something like that, that's on the website as well. But all in all, it's all instructional stuff, and we're just trying to help other individuals to become better and smarter elk hunters, so we can have the best bang for our buck. So many guys are going out of state and spending all this money, and you might as well be well equipped when you get out there, the best that you can be. And so this information can help them out.
Yeah. Well, I'll say personally that for me, with my limited experience, to have an opportunity to learn from guys like you with decades of experience and dozens of bulls, taken by the stick and the string, it's certainly valuable to me. So thank you not only for putting those resources together, but certainly for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thanks,
no
Paul.
problem at all, man. It's always my pleasure to be able to share information and just talk elk. It really is. So I appreciate you guys asking me back.
That is a wrap on this one, guys. Hope you have enjoyed not only this episode with Paul, but also be sure to check out the previous 2 episodes with Chris Rowe and Corey Jacobson. If you want to fill an elk tag this year, this trio of episodes will no doubt help you do that. So hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you find some benefit from it. From here on out, man, we have a bunch of episodes that we've already recorded that we will be releasing. We're going to mix things up. We have some bear hunting stuff. We're going to get back into some rifle content, some long range shooting, bow sight selection. I mean, we have all kinds of stuff coming. So hope that as seasons get going, you guys still stay tuned. Be sure to download and stay up to date with what's happening from the Hunt Backcountry podcast. As always, feel free to contact us directly by email, podcast@exomountaingear.com. Hope your seasons go well. Be sure to share your story and share your field photos as well.